Why do you think an emergency fund is important in the first place?
I would not recommend a savings account because while it will be safe, it will be tucked away, but it's not going to be earning you anything. So
Right.
I think we need to make our money work hard for us
Right.
so that
Right.
you have parallel streams of income. As far as a woman is concerned, your finances should always be in your control what you do.
That women still somehow, even in the 21st century, even in today's day and age, they might be earning. They don't seem to be managing their own money. Should this emergency fund be something that's solely accessible to her?
I think, regardless of what your situation in life is, a woman should always be in control of her own money. Always. And, not her brother, not her father, not her husband, not her son should be dictating terms. You should consult everyone. You should consult your friends. You should, whoever is your trusted person who has sound financial knowledge and can advise you. Could be anyone in your family, your father, brother, husband, whoever.
We have with us Barnali Das, who is the co-founder of BankersKlub, a fintech aggregator platform. Barnali, thank you for joining us today. We will be discussing a very important part of finance, a personal finance, which is emergency funds. But before we get into that, I'd like to know a little bit about you and the brand that you're building.
Thank you so much, first of all, Rupsha, for having me here. I've had a career journey of about 26 years plus, out of which the last year has been dedicated to building this business, this brand called BankersKlub. We are a fintech aggregator platform for corporate financial advisory services and a lot more. We just completed, like a year of being in operation, and it's all about bringing former bankers, and in fact we are India's first platform to actually aggregate retired or former bankers services to serve MSMEs and other businesses. So proud to be a part of this brand, which is a very, very unique brand in that sense in India.
Very excited to hear about that. But today, with your expertise in building a fintech company, I want to break down the concept of emergency funds, especially for women. So, we are a women's platform, which is why the women angle matters so much to us. I want to understand firstly from you, why do you think an emergency fund is important in the first place?
First of all, we need to understand what is an emergency fund. So in finance terms, an emergency fund is essentially 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. So for example, if your living expenses is 50,000 rupees a month, then 6 months means 3 lakh rupees you need to have tucked away somewhere, which you can put to use when, God forbid, you are meeting with an emergency. Right. And your primary source of income has dried up, you are unable to kind of go to office. It could be for any number of reasons, could be health, could be a personal emergency in your family, could be childbirth, you are pregnant, or because of your health situation you are not able to go to office, sometimes people need to even drop off jobs. So for any kind of those kind of life emergency situation, you must have that little nest somewhere, which you have. Of course it needs to be liquid so that in emergency you can quickly kind of liquidate the money and put it to good use. So that's what is an emergency fund. As far as women are concerned, there could be all kinds of situations. Sometimes your family stability may not be there. The umbrella that you had over your head, a broken marriage for example, if it is not there, then you need to cover yourself. Correct. So that's where that emergency fund really comes in handy.
I want to understand, you said liquid money. So first of all, where should it be? Should it be in a savings account? Should it be in an FD? Should it be in a mutual fund? So this 3 to 6 months of living expenses, suppose let's assume it's about 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs, where should that amount be kept?
Liquid money is obviously something you can liquidate very quickly. If your money is saved in, for example, gold or real estate, or something that you can't liquidate fast. So here Of course, savings account means you are not earning any interest pretty
Right.
much. So your money is actually not working for you while you are busy doing something else. You should, primarily have your money in a instrument where you are earning some good interest on that money, because after all, that money you have kept aside,
Right.
but it should be earning some good interest also at the same time. So it could be, there are sweeping accounts where your money, whatever you are monthly allocating, it should automatically go into a FD, and then that earns you better interest than your savings account. Either that, or you could put your money in an arbitrage fund, mutual fund, which is again, you can liquidate in 24 hours. You just sell, and you can have your mutual funds also. You can have your CAN number, and you can directly manage your mutual
Right.
funds without having to go through a broker. So you can just within 24 hours liquidate that. So those are the kind of instruments where your money should be saved. I would not recommend a savings account, because while it will be safe, it will be tucked away, but it's not going to be earning you anything.
Right.
So I think we need to make our money work hard for us,
Right.
so that
Right.
you have parallel streams of income.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the relationship with money and how much this fund should be will probably differ based on a person's age group. So I want to understand, if we sort of bucket 3 age groups, which is maybe 21 to 35 and initial phases of one's career, and then 35 to 50, which is the central bit where probably someone's married and childbirth, all of that, and then the last bit, which is 50 plus. So in these 3 age groups, if you can tell us whether this money management of the emergency fund should be different in any way, or is the sweeping rule of 3 months to 6 months living expenses, is that valid for whoever is in question?
Personally, if you ask me from my life experience, what I would say is that regardless of at what, like I'm talking about a working woman, a professional. Okay, so there are entry level jobs, you are fresh graduate and you've just entered the market.
Yeah.
Obviously your incomes are not, they are entry level income. So the objective is to try and save, maybe starting from 20%, that 20% of your monthly income at an entry level job you should try and save. Of course your income levels, it depends, and your life circumstances also depends on how much you are able to take out for saving. And then gradually, as your income level goes up, you grow the professional ladder, and then you should start with the 20% and gradually start building that 20, 25, 30, 35% of your income. You should be try and invest through SIPs, in mutual fund, or if shares is your thing, then maybe you can buy shares, etc., and start building your asset portfolio.
Right.
So that of course also again depends on your age, of course, define so many other things and of our life choices. So when you are at an entry level, you are saving this much, but then you get married, you have a child, then your child's education starts, and if
Yeah.
you are a professional, you have a partner, you are married, then you decide a lot of your financial matters are joint decisions.
Right.
Depending on what is your living expense as a family, what is the wife's contribution, what is the husband's contribution into it. But then that emergency fund should always be there, whether you are a single woman or a partnered woman, it should always be there. And then gradually, as you you cross 40, then you start thinking of your pension, and you start thinking and building for your retirement, that I'm not going to be working forever, and by 40 you have anywhere reached professional sort of mid level or a senior level, and then you are quite steady in your job and your life and everything, your children are grown up. So there then your life goals are very, very different again. Then you may be thinking of building a house or purchasing a house. So at different levels your financial goals are going to be very, very different. But personal finance, I think as far as a woman is concerned, your finances should always be in your control. What you do, nobody starts by knowing everything. It's all about building your own understanding about managing your finances, educating yourself, sensitizing yourself, so that you know what you need to do with your money.
Correct.
So I think that's how I would see it. And then you know, rest of the things are, I think, pretty much the different stages of life will have an impact on how you make your financial decisions.
Yeah.
So
That women still somehow, even in the 21st century, even in today's day and age, despite earning, despite being a big part of the workforce, they don't seem to be managing their own money. They might be earning, but they don't seem to be saving or investing their own money. They either have a father or a husband or a brother, somebody doing it for them. What is your sort of take on that? And my reason of asking that is that should this emergency fund be something that's solely accessible to her, or is it something that's okay if it's managed by somebody else and she can sort of tap into it when needed? Or is it something that she should create and keep aside for her own self for whenever needed?
my personal opinion on this is a very, very strong opinion. I think regardless of what your situation in life is, a woman should always be in control of her own money. Always. And you know, not her brother, not her father, not her husband, not her son should be dictating terms. You should consult everyone. You should consult your friends. You should, whoever is your trusted that, you know, person who has sound financial knowledge and can advise you, could be anyone in your family, your father, brother, husband, whoever. But at the end of the day, the decision should be yours, and the control, more importantly, control should be yours. So emergency fund, I think all circumstances, unless you are in a situation when you are not in control of your senses because of health reason, it can happen, you know, accidents or something when you can't access. But apart from that, for all other situations, you should have control of your own finances. How to access, when to access, how much to access of your emergency fund should be your personal decision. Yes, it is sad that even today's day and age, when there is so much information available at the tap of a button, you know, what you should do with your money, and there's so many videos and so many things to teach yourself, there are still women who are perhaps not comfortable talking about money, discussing, managing, controlling, all of those things. But my personal, you know, lesson and learning from my life is that if you don't have control over your own finances, honestly, empowerment as a word is hollow. You are not truly empowered, you are not truly equal to anyone if you don't have your own finances and your own control over your finances. You may be earning very well, but at the end of the day, if you are dependent on somebody else for your own money, then that's not true empowerment. And I think here one has to be more proactive and you know, not be lazy about it and teach yourself. Like, there are so many things we teach ourselves. You know, this is one of those things. Unfortunately, you know, our Indian education system doesn't teach you much about personal finances, but there are so many other sources to, you know, teach yourself. So I think women should just go all out, teach yourself, and then control, you know, their own finances. Always to the best of their abilities. If they have a trusted partner, very good, discuss with your husband and you know, take good decisions consultatively with your family, but manage it yourself.
I want to ask you something a little more personal. People sort of assume that, you know, everybody's sort of built their emergency fund, but we don't really get an insight into what true discipline, financial discipline might actually look like. So since you're an expert in this, and I want to know from you, what are the habits that you've inculcated which has helped you be disciplined and build a good emergency fund for you and your family? Are there sacrifices that you may have had to make in terms of lifestyle, in terms of purchases, anything, small or big, to be disciplined, to sort of tell yourself that, okay, no, this is the limit and this is the budget and we don't go overboard?
Very important, Rupsa. You have just nailed it. You know, discipline before even emergency fund, the foundational thing is about discipline, tracking your expenses on a weekly, monthly basis, and knowing, what is your family's budget, how much is your family's income. If two, husband and wife are working, collectively how much money is coming into the house, how much of it is getting utilized in running the household expenses, how much you are keeping it aside for your travels, holidays, entertainment, dining out, children's expenses. All these different buckets of your family's budget should be tracked in a very, very disciplined manner. So just to give you an example, I wasn't very clued in my younger days, in my 20s, but when I got married, my new family was and still is a very disciplined family when it comes to finances, which has been grilled by my father-in-law. So, my family kind of tracks every little expense, and it's a habit. It doesn't take much time, 5 or 10 minutes a day, all the expenses are written down in a diary, and then at the end of the month, everything is totaled, incoming and outflows and inflows are total, and we know exactly what was our family's monthly expense. So when you know that X amount is your family's monthly expense, there may be only 5%, 10% here and there
every month,
but month on month you know what is your annual requirement, how much you are earning, how much of it is getting spent in running the household. So that kind of discipline is so important, and believe you me, when you are disciplined like that, things start falling into place. When you say, okay, this month we traveled, we have overspent, next month you become a little bit more frugal. Instead of dining out 4 times or 5 times a month, you curtail that cost. Instead of going to the movie, watch it at home, don't go out. So all those expenses which are choices. See, there are must-haves and there are good-to-have things in life. Must-haves you can't compromise. Good-to-have things you can go here and there. So you control and you balance so that your emergency fund remains untouched and you manage within your income. So that kind of discipline is what will build and enable you to, first of all, keep that emergency fund aside. Other things, your regular investments, your SIPs, keeping things aside for your child's higher education. Because higher education is expensive. You have to start keeping aside money, which will also start growing as your child grows, so that when your child is 18, you have money to send your child for school, college, and whatever, higher education. And then similarly, if you have some regular holidays planned, sometimes you have a foreign trip planned, and you want to splurge a little bit, enjoy, and in a foreign destination. So all these expenses then can be planned very well, because you have saved this much is already there for emergency, and out of the savings you can take out X amount of money for a little bit of a indulgence and a splurge, etc. So this is how your financial discipline is very, very important, and I think women, truly empowered women, can really influence those families' decisions and choices about where to spend money, how much to spend money, and sometimes when not to spend money also. Then there may be pressure, but you say that, as the, CFO, I call the women CFOs of their house, say, no, this month we are a little tight. Let's go easy on those expenses. Let's just live a little frugally this month and balance it out. So, these are the little things that you really kind of build from a very young age, and then, it really starts paying the dividends in the longer run. And then, you would have then built your asset, because assets are something, you inherit something from your parents, right? Then you build on it. And then you leave that generational, at least, we all try. You all try that, we leave something more than what we got for our children. And then, that is how generational wealth will build, and your children will benefit, like you would have benefited from your parents' money. And your child will also benefit from your money. So that is how this discipline has to flow through generations in families, I believe.
Are there any common mistakes that you've seen women make, or generally people make, when they are saving? It's one thing, because I think there is so much advice going around. Is it enough to just save? Is it, or what do you do with the money that you're saving?
Yeah, like Rupsha, we were discussing earlier, I think the narrative has to be not about saving, it has to be about investing now. I believe that, you know, whatever you have, what, with all the discipline that you have built in your lifestyle, whatever money you have managed to take out, 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever it is, that money needs to also work for you. You know, and then that money should be like a parallel income stream for you. If you have spent, if you have put money, you know, aside, and you have put, you know, different kind of, because there are mutual funds also come in all shapes and sizes. So you put money, you know, depending on your asset allocation, you put some money in, you know, arbitrage fund, some money in like maybe index fund, some money in directly managed mutual funds, which gives you more than, you know, average index fund income. And then you have the risk appetite. If you have a little bit of surplus money, you even go and invest in shares. And then if you are even more adventurous and you have the means and you have a surplus income, then you invest in private equity. You invest in maybe AIFs, you invest in, maybe you become an angel investor, you know, invest in your ecosystem. If you have you know, very promising with good robust startups around, then maybe you become an angel investor. So there are degrees and levels of, you know, making your money grow, because a startup fund which will give you you know, a startup where you invested, you know, X amount of money, if you get 4 or 5x at exit in 3 or 4 years, you know, there's nothing like it, because no other traditional means will give you that kind of return. So you really need to know how much money you have and what is your asset allocation, in which bucket how much you want to put, and what is the kind of return you are expecting from each of these buckets. So all of these returns are going to be different, but you need to have different, diversify your portfolio, have different asset allocations, have different kind of, you know, asset classes at your disposal, because even gold has now hit 10 gram is for, you know, over 1 lakh rupees. So if you had bought gold when it was 30 or 40,000 rupees for 10 gram, your wealth has grown because you have money invested in gold. So all of these things need to be thought through and planned and, you know, accordingly executed. So that is how I would, you know, say that, you know, you approach these things.
But would you also add to this that while investing is so important, building that emergency fund, even if it's a savings account as a sweeping account, is the first step of discipline?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, that is like a non-compromisable thing. Your emergency fund will remain emergency fund, and the size or the volume of it may change depending on how old you are, your life situation, but that is emergency fund. That
and you
needs
don't
to be
touch
liquid
that.
and you don't touch it. And then similarly, or some people may just want to have it in their savings account only and not do anything with it. Some people are just, you know, made that way, ki this much money I should have, this is my minimum balance, I should have it in my savings account. And if husband and wife both have that threshold built already in their savings account कि X amount कि 2-2 लाख इस दोनों account में तो रहेगा ही हमेशा, इससे नीचे जाना ही नहीं है, तो then that kind of covers your emergency fund. But I am talking about your overall you know, financial planning and your overall personal finance goals. You know, so your investments and all that is over and above the emergency fund. And your asset allocation in different asset classes is also over and above the emergency fund. That is what I am saying.
I want to understand from you, what are some of the circumstances that you may need an emergency fund for? Because a lot of us, we think, oh, we'll never need it. We have an health insurance maybe, or, you know, my dad or my husband might have money. So why do I personally need to build this? Because nobody foresees disaster coming. Nobody foresees what may actually lead us to use that fund. So what would your advice be? What have you seen maybe around you of where a woman might need to tap into that emergency fund?
There are all kinds of nasty things happen in life, and it's not a bed of roses. Shit happens. So I would say the kind of situations that happen in people's life and a woman's life is starting with health crisis. It could be your own health, it could be somebody else, your spouse or your parents' health, situations where there are a lot of times people need to actually resign from their jobs to go and do caregiving work. So health crisis, and you may have a debilitating disease because of which you are unable to work and your primary source of income dries up. So health. Secondly, I would imagine, for a woman, maternity. I personally have gone through a very bad phase because of health reason. I had placenta previa and I had to be on bed rest, and I had to actually quit my job because it was my first baby and I couldn't have compromised on that. So I quit my job, and then after my baby was about 6 months old, it was so tough to get back to a job. And I'm talking about 25 years back. It is hard even now for a woman to get back, and it was so much harder back in those days.
Yeah.
And I was like ready to take up anything, just to be able to get out of the house and start earning again. So that is how hard it was. So maternity is another that kind of a phase in one's life, a woman's life, that she needs to be absolutely prepared for before she even plans her first pregnancy or second pregnancy. Then the third thing is, of course, about job loss, because layoffs are rampant. Because of your reason, you may have quit because of all kinds of reasons, or you may have been laid off. We live in extremely volatile times. Life and jobs are no longer the way it used to be even 10-15 years back. Retirement age, they are saying nowadays, earlier people used to think of retiring at 60. Now people who are 45 plus, who have reached a status in their professional career, is now actually thinking of retiring because they have somehow become redundant, and their jobs are now given to younger people, and in corporate life 45 is now the new 60. So given such volatility in the market, in our economy, in our volatile world, we need to be always prepared for a sudden job loss. And the fourth thing is, who would have imagined something like COVID happening?
Absolutely.
We in our wildest imagination could not have thought the kind of jobs and livelihood that were impacted by COVID is like now, even now it gives me goosebumps. And there were, you remember how layoffs happen globally.
Layoffs
and
happened, people's health long
and then
COVID.
so all of that happened. So those are the reasons, natural disaster, force majeure, you have to be prepared for those kind of situations. And I think there could be many other reasons also. And sometimes people even willingly take a sabbatical, if you are in a extremely tough job where you are burnt out, and you really need to take that break to build your own personal well-being, your mental health and everything. You have to sort of recover from a very bad job, and then take that break in your life. So those are the reasons that you must have that emergency fund and even more critical now than ever, I think, that emergency fund.
And I think once you have it, you will be a little more assured in life, like you can live a little more freely, because every one of us worries about a job loss. So you are not as scared because you know that you might have built something to support you through those days.
Absolutely. And for women, another thing I would like to highlight here, divorce rates have gone through the roof in India. A stable marriage, today you think it's a stable marriage, and you may be dependent on women who are dependent on their husband. And they did not really focus on building their own career for many reasons. But suddenly, if that stability is not there anymore, you are on your own.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
Yeah.
Suddenly you have to start, and if God forbid, if you have a child to look after and yourself to look after, and then if you don't have a nest and you don't have an emergency fund, you don't have anyone to fall back on,
Yeah.
then that will be a really, really tragic situation. So I think for women it is super critical that, you know, of course you have your parents, but not everybody may have the luxury
Yeah.
of going back to their parents and parents looking after them.
Yeah.
So those are, I think, situations that one needs to be prepared for.
Yeah.
And crisis doesn't come with a, you know, alarm
Warning.
bell. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Barnali. This has been a lovely chat. And I really hope you join us in further discussions in this series as well. Thank you for watching HerZindagi. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, share and comment.